For a show rooted in science, sitcom hijinks, and pop culture references, The Big Bang Theory rarely took itself too seriously. But when young Sheldon debuted, fans were surprised to discover a show far more thoughtful, character-driven, and even sentimental than its predecessor. It was a prequel, yes, but also a transformation. A show about a boy genius growing up in East Texas that dared to explore heartache, family, and loss alongside thermodynamics and comic books. And yet, despite its strong writing and surprising emotional depth, young Sheldon's strangest character arc may have unraveled its most poignant twist before it even had a chance to land. That character, Georgie Cooper. Now, Georgie, Sheldon's older brother, has always occupied a peculiar spot in the Cooper family dynamic. In The Big Bang Theory, he's painted as the quintessential Texan tough guy, mechanically inclined, a bit dim, rough around the edges, and very much estranged from his genius brother. His appearances in the original show are few but memorable, and the picture he paints of their upbringing is often bleak. Their father was a drunk, their mother overbearing, and Sheldon, as always, an unbearable know-it-all. But young Sheldon challenged all of that, and in the process, unintentionally tripped over its own storytelling. Initially introduced as a stereotypical jock with little ambition, Georgie's arc took a sudden and drastic turn. He went from the surly older brother who couldn't care less about school to a hard-working, emotionally mature teen entrepreneur. While that kind of growth is possible, young Sheldon seemed determined to rehabilitate Georgie's image completely, as if to prep him for future stardom. And it worked, sort of. Audiences liked him. Georgie grew into a sympathetic figure, often acting more mature than Sheldon himself. He became a reliable source of humor and occasional emotional resonance. The problem? That growth stood in direct contrast to what The Big Bang Theory had already established. This is where the weirdness begins to unravel the twist. One of the most emotionally powerful twists embedded in the DNA of young Sheldon, even if you didn't watch the original show, is the death of George Sr., Sheldon's father. Fans of The Big Bang Theory knew it was coming. It's a known quantity in the mythology. George Sr. would die when Sheldon was 14. It was supposed to be the moment that fractured the Cooper household forever. Sheldon's grief, Mary's descent into religious fanaticism, and Georgie's estrangement all spun out of that tragedy. The events were grim, and they were part of what defined Sheldon's later character. It was even hinted that George Sr. had been unfaithful, a claim that cast a shadow over the character. But young Sheldon decided to give George Sr. a redemption arc, just like Georgie, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, Lance Barber's nuanced portrayal of a flawed but loving father turned George Sr. into one of the show's most complex and endearing characters. He wasn't perfect, he drank, he made mistakes, but he cared, he showed up, he loved his family. Then came the emotional gut punch. George Sr. died in season 7, and the moment should have changed everything. It should have torn the Cooper family apart. It should have triggered the pathos we knew was waiting. But Georgie's arc made that nearly impossible. By the time of George Sr.'s death, Georgie had become the most stable member of the Cooper family. He was running his own business, he had a child on the way, and he seemed more capable of processing grief than his own mother. Instead of spiraling, he stepped up. Instead of creating a rift between him and Sheldon, his relationship with his younger brother seemed to soften. There was no real animosity, no signs of the bitterness and abandonment that Sheldon would later allude to in adulthood. And therein lies the twist that young Sheldon accidentally ruined, the deterioration of the Cooper family post-George Sr. The emotional payoff, the generational trauma, the weight of Sheldon's memories, all of it depended on something young Sheldon never truly delivered. Rather than showing us a family in crisis, it showed us a family that was, more or less, fine. Resilient, even. This isn't just a small misstep. It recontextualizes everything we thought we knew about Sheldon's upbringing. If George Sr. wasn't a negligent father, if Mary didn't fall into overbearing zealotry, and if Georgie never truly turned against his family, then much of what Sheldon says in The Big Bang Theory comes across as petty exaggeration. Or worse, emotional revisionism. To be clear, revisionism can be powerful storytelling. It's often compelling to show how memory warps over time, how trauma colors perception. But young Sheldon didn't frame its contradictions that way. It didn't ask viewers to question Sheldon's reliability as a narrator. Instead, it played its cards straight, and in doing so, it betrayed its own continuity. Georgie's strange and sudden maturity dulled the edges of what should have been a jagged, heartbreaking twist. His stable presence acted like emotional insulation, preventing the family from falling apart. He became the glue when he was supposed to be a splinter. And it's not entirely his fault. Montana Jordan, who plays young Georgie, delivers a charming and often hilarious performance. The writers clearly saw potential and leaned into it. But in building him up, they built away from the pain that should have made Sheldon who he is. It's a strange paradox. A character's development, done too well, ended up harming the story's ultimate trajectory. Now, with young Sheldon concluded and a Georgie and Mandy spin-off on the way, the show's emotional legacy is in limbo. We're left with a Sheldon who wasn't as scarred as he seemed, a father who wasn't as flawed, and a brother who never walked away. That doesn't make young Sheldon bad television. On the contrary, it often surpassed its predecessor in quality. But it does make it feel disconnected from the story it was born to support. In the end, young Sheldon tried to have it both ways, heartfelt drama and retroactive clarity. But it forgot that tragedy needs stakes, and stakes need fractures. Georgie's arc, as delightful as it was, accidentally patched over the very cracks that made Sheldon Cooper so compelling. And in doing so, the show that began as a twist on a beloved sitcom, twisted itself right out of its most powerful truth. Would you like this formatted for a blog post, voiceover script, or publication pitch?